Space Marine cannibalism in Warhammer 40,000 is a dark and disturbing aspect of the lore, mostly associated with certain Space Marine chapters and their survival in extreme circumstances. It is not a common practice across all Space Marine factions, but there are notable instances where it occurs, particularly when a chapter is in dire need of sustenance or when they fall into the grip of madness, mutation, or desperation. The most infamous instance of Space Marine cannibalism is tied to the Flesh Tearers, a successor chapter of the Blood Angels. The Flesh Tearers, much like their parent chapter, are cursed with the Black Rage, a terrible affliction that drives them into frenzied states of uncontrollable rage, often causing them to lose all sense of reasoning and identity. The Black Rage is a direct result of their genetic inheritance from their Primarch Sanguinius, and it manifests as a violent obsession with the death of their gene father during the Horus Heresy. In an effort to control this rage and maintain some semblance of discipline, the Flesh Tearers developed extreme methods of surviving in battle, which included cannibalizing their fallen enemies, especially during prolonged campaigns where food and resources were scarce. This cannibalism is typically not for nourishment in the traditional sense, but rather an act that ties them to their gene heritage, reflecting the brutal and violent nature of their chapter. The practice of consuming the flesh of enemies is seen as a grim necessity for maintaining combat effectiveness and preventing the corruption of the chapter, as it helps them stave off the devastating effects of their genetic curse. Other instances of Space Marine cannibalism exist among different chapters, especially during times of crisis, such as when the chapter's gene seed supply is depleted and there is no alternative means of recruitment. In such extreme circumstances, it is suggested that certain chapters might resort to cannibalism to preserve their numbers, though this is usually hinted at rather than explicitly detailed in the lore. Cannibalism is also sometimes linked to the Chaos Space Marines, particularly those who have fallen into worship of the Chaos gods. Some Chaos-aligned factions, such as the World Eaters, may engage in cannibalistic rituals as part of their madness and bloodlust. For example, Angron, the Primarch of the World Eaters, is associated with extreme violence and brutality, and his followers may partake in ritualistic cannibalism as an expression of devotion to their dark gods, particularly Khorne, the Chaos god of blood and war. In all instances, Space Marine cannibalism is a deeply taboo and dark practice, usually tied to the grim realities of warfare in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. While it is not widespread across the Adeptus Astartes, it serves to highlight the extreme conditions that some chapters endure and the horrors that can arise when a warrior's humanity is slowly stripped away by their gene heritage, genetic curses, or the insidious influence of chaos.